In the ancient past, the Sultan of Murder, Mahadiwa KALAKATRI Umanun, raised an order of warrior monks whose sole purpose was to use their passions and pain to protect those around them. These revenant martyrs were called the Bayat Sala, those who pay for their sins, and only a scant few of them remain today. They have been stolen by the Panyakalakan, the goddess of murder turned into Saint Kali. The final initiation of a Murderglave is being immersed into a blood pond before an altar to Mahadiwa KALAKATRI Umanun. Using this near-death experience, they come face to face with the mother of 10,000 bloody spears, and they become transcendent. In their transcendence, they come to enlightenment, a petty enlightenment, but still an enlightenment to be sure, that violence should not be the end. This was obvious, they know, but they never wish to admit it. It is like realizing that you are being stabbed in the face by an enemy lance at the last second because you did not bring your shield. Thus, the Murderglave's passion is inherently hamstrung with regret. Mahadiwa KALAKATRI Umanun always leaves them with the words, "There is no atonement for this, sinner." Murderglaves are dark knights and magical warriors that rely on their atonement. Many Murderglaves arise from martial artists that suffer a certain guilt for their violences. Their magics and techniques come from a mix of mastery over the giant blade as well as the mastery of their passions, which they manifest as shadow and fulminating darkness. They have been cultivated the most by Banwa, who creates Murderglave chapels and training monasteries at the edges of Banwan territory and conquest. They are inherently distrusted, since they channel their power outside of Sampalatea, the Ashen Star Faith. The bloody-handed redemption was created by a Dadu and his village of KALAKATRI faithfuls who lived as warrior priests, in the northern plains of Rosunuga. The Dadu is said to have been Dadu Sakura, who was killed by El Campeador, and subsumed KALAKATRI into the greater saint of murder and penitence, Saint Kali. The Murderglaves were integral to the Battle of Binanka River, where 5 powerful Murderglaves stood their ground and staved off an entire Isohapan battalion and river fleet long enough for their allies to be saved by Sinyaka war barges. These passions of the Murderglave manifest as tendrils of darkness, of shadow. They understand that to embrace humanity is to embrace darkness, and that using that darkness, they can bring about life and light. By their pain, they create walls of obsidian. By their fear, they shield their allies. By their love, they grant others another chance. If you become a Murderglave, ask yourself why you have chosen such a bloody path. The left-handed path of the blackened blood is not the safest path, and is not the friendliest. Why do you suffer to help others, when you know that all your suffering is potentially in vain? Hello viewers and welcome to a brand new episode of Trashtalk on Gubat Banwa, where I talk about the various disciplines you can play as within. And in today's episode, let's talk about the Murderglave. Murderglave is a sentinel, which you can clearly see by taking a look at their discipline philosophy, Dark Heart, which gives them a huge 10 health, along with 3 speed, 1 jump, and +1 to faith and resilience, making the Murderglave well suited to using and defending against magic attack. Also, whenever you start your riv, you gain malice, 2 if you are staggered, which is when you are at and below half health. When an enemy leaves a tile adjacent to you, or you are the target of a non-area attack, or a fighter taunted by you makes an attack that does not include you as a target, you may spend malice to immediately inflict 1 hit on the triggering target per malice spent. Also, when an enemy in burst 3 of you starts their riff while you have malice, they have to roll d6, if the result is lower or equal to your current malice, you become their only valid target for that riff. Basically, Murderglave protects their allies by forcing the enemies to have no other choice other than attacking them and them only, and if they try to leave, attack you, or ignore you, you can hit them right back, hard. That is essentially the basis of how Murderglave works. Anyway, let's take a look at their inflict violences. Bloody-handed redemption. First, Shadowbringer, is a simple ranged 3 attack with faith that also pull the target by 2 towards you, just to keep the enemies closer to you. Second, Reaping Panibus, is a blast 2 area attack with faith. It looks like this by the way in case you forgot because I haven't talked about blast for a while. 1 fighter adjacent to you is blown wide open, opening them up for attacks. And third, Incense, choose 1 fighter in range 2, and taunt them until the end of your next riv. Also gain 1 malice. This is basically your taunt action to keep an enemy attention on you even more, or just to hit them with malice whenever you feel like it. It also gives you malice on its own which can be quite useful. To sum these inflict violences up, 1 can pull enemies in, 1 can then attack all the grouped enemies around you because that will happen eventually, and 1 just taunt an enemy if you want to focus down on someone, all of which are very useful for a sentinel. Now, let's take a look at the Murderglave's signature techniques. First, Scarlet Edge of Love, is just a melee attack with faith, but, you can suffer X amount of true hits to the maximum of your resilience to gain plus X amount of attack dice, essentially increasing your damage by increasing your own pain. Keep in mind these are true hits, so nothing can really block these damage. I hope you have a healer by your side. This technique can also be upgraded to Fulminating Blade of Passion, in which the attack also slows the target and taunt them until the end of your next riff, and when they ended their riff without attacking you, they are stunned. This forces the target to attack you, but it also would be very funny if your allies prevent them from attacking you entirely, thus causing them to get stunned. All in all, this is going to increase the amount of pain inflicted on someone else. And that's it. Scarlet Edge of Love only has one upgrade. Second, on Blackened Wings and Talons, you get to fly 2 and then debilitate all adjacent enemies, fly 4 if you are staggered. This is essentially a mobility aid that also causes some troubles onto your foes when you land, giving you an opening to strike them down. This technique can also be upgraded to Burning Hatred Grasp. After inflicting debilitate, you may fly 2, 4 if staggered, again, bringing with you one fighter. This fighter must end adjacent with you, and you get to blow them wide open. Now the technique lets you kidnap one fighter away from their allies and you get to destroy them with ease. And also, Black Claw Solemnidad, in which after flying, attack the fighter you brought with you with faith plus resilience, and then taunt them until the end of your next riff, because you are going to beat them down anyway, might as well beat them up even harder. One way to make this technique even better is to take away one of the fighters straight back to your allies, so everyone in your team can kick the shit out of them while the rest can only cry. After unlocking 2 of the Murderglave signature techniques, you also unlock their Enlightenment, Dalagang Barkle, in which for once per resound, while you are not at full health, and when an enemy you have taunted, debilitated, or blown wide open starts their riff, you may rush towards them, and if they are adjacent by the end of your movement, inflict violence. This is a good enlightenment for any players that like to get close and personal. This is basically free damage with the right status effects, but of course, there's the catch that you have to be not at full health to use it, meaning this might get a bit risky. Still, it might be worth it to get to attack someone as soon as they starts their riff, especially if they are on death's door. Third on the list is Sabat Caligo, a melee attack with faith that also debilitates and slows down the target, perfect to keep someone from running away, and be less harmful to you. You can also upgrade the technique to Lance of Darkness, which instead turns it into a line 3 area attack with faith, that also debilitates, slows, and taunts all targets until the end of their next riff. Also, this attack is safe, meaning if your allies are in the way, they are perfectly fine, just one way to give more pain to more people. And also, Soul Eating Trident, which increase the line to line 6, plus you heal 1 per enemy in the line, not enemy hit, just enemy in the line, which is a good way to get healed up since as a sentinel, you will get beaten up by a lot compared to other disciplines. Lastly, there's Saint Kai's Bloody Hand, in which you get to go to fighter you can see in range 5, which basically caused them to gain all these status effects together. This goaded effect only ends when they successfully hit you. This technique does one thing and one thing only, ruin someone's day, in absolute completeness. You don't even need to roll anything, just point at someone, and they will suffer like they just stubbed their toe onto a door 1,000 times at once. Of course, they can cancel it out completely by hitting you, but that's the point, isn't it? You can also just run away and laugh at them some more. Also, this line here, because of how this technique works, for example, say your target is suffering bleeding prior to taking this whole thing, when they cancel the goad by punching you, they don't lose said bleeding effect, because when goaded, the target suffer the effects of these statuses, but they aren't suffering the statuses themselves. What I'm trying to say is if the target has any prior effects before getting goaded, they don't just disappear when they cancel out of the goaded effect. This technique can also be upgraded to KALAKATRI's Wrath, in which the technique also grants you overwhelming defense until the end of your next riff, so you get even more defense too, and Murder Goddess challenges mortality, which lets you goads 2 fighters at range 6 now. After unlocking 4 of the Murderglave signature techniques, you also unlock its Liberation, Self-Love, in which at resound 2+ for 1 beat, put a shadow of yourself anywhere within range 4, the shadow is indestructible, but it stays where it is. Every tile within burst 2 of it is difficult terrain for enemies. You can also launch your attacks with the shadow as an origin point. Essentially, you can double the troubles for your foes with this liberation. It might not sound as crazy as other liberations, but you essentially have a permanent point on the map that's just bad for enemies and lets you launch attack from it. It's like a copy of you that nobody can dislodge. All they can do is try to stay away from it, which means putting it in places your enemies cannot stay away from is the best use of this liberation. And that's basically it on Murderglave. channelers of the murder goddess that shields their allies and brings forth hope from darkness. Anyway, that's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.